Kendall from the Midnight Oil. Today I have a great tutorial for you. If you follow me on Instagram, then you have seen that I've been teasing a doormat tutorial for a few weeks now. Here it is. I don't know how to be fancy and make pictures pop up by my head, so I straight up nailed this doormat into my wall, and yeah, my husband's gonna die when he comes home and sees a doormat nailed to our wall, but you do what you gotta do. So anyway, I'm super excited. You guys have probably seen this trend all over Instagram, all over Pinterest. It's super cute. You can add any phrase you want. I love Hey There Pumpkin because I'm obsessed with fall. I'm obsessed with pumpkins. So these are for sale on many Etsy shops. They're actually on sale on my website as well, in case you look at this tutorial and think, well, that's way too hard. You can buy it on my website, but I'm pretty sure you guys can do this tutorial. So I wanted to share with you my tips and tricks on how to make this adorable doormat. So the first thing I am going to tell you is all the things that you need. So I found my plain doormat at IKEA for $4.99. It is slightly smaller than like standard doormats, but this layering trend is so popular right now that it actually makes it the perfect size. So the other thing you'll need is this super awesome paper. Let me get the big piece. I found this when I was at Michael's the other day. It's like poster size. It's clear. One side is slicker and one side is a little bit bumpy. There was an awesome employee at Michael's who talked me through my idea, and she was like, wait, we have this one weird paper that might work for you. And I was like, this is brilliant. So this was $2, and you can always use a coupon at Michael's. So you could get this for like $1. I also am using just a little bit of duct tape to help keep our stencil in place. You'll need black acrylic paint. You can get this at any craft store, Walmart, should be under $1, even like 60 cents sometimes. You will also need a paintbrush. I like these stencil paintbrushes, but you could use a sponge paintbrush. Those are cheaper, the foam sponge paintbrushes. You cannot use just a regular paintbrush. You either will need a sponge one, something you can dab with. So a sponge one or a stencil paintbrush. You'll also need an X-Acto knife. Now, this is a utility knife because I'm just cheap and I've never owned an actual X-Acto knife. I always get them from the Dollar Tree, but this worked. It worked perfectly fine. So if you have an X-Acto knife, use that. If you have a utility knife, that will work too. You do want it to be like brand new so that it's really sharp. Because I tried to use one of my old ones and it would not cut through the paper. So luckily when I went and bought a new one from the Dollar Tree, it cut perfectly fine. So, all right, those are, yeah, that's everything you need. So if you didn't gather already, we will be making a stencil for us to be able to make this mat. So the first thing I did is I went on my computer and I chose fonts that I liked, and I chose the sizing. So I actually printed it out. I have before just like traced on my computer screen, which is probably really bad for my computer screen, but it works too. So anyway, this time I decided to actually print it out. I ended up having to print the pumpkin on 2 pieces because I wanted it larger than 1 sheet of paper. So I just divided it up, printed it on 2 pieces, and then I just cut and taped it all together. This was probably the hardest part, was trying to decide which fonts I liked and get the sizing right. But once you've done this, it's fairly straightforward. All you'll do is put it underneath the paper. I did the smooth side down, and then you will want to use, perfect, it's right here. I use a ultra fine point Sharpie. I'm not sure if non-permanent markers will actually write on this paper, so I suggest getting one of these ultra fine permanent marker Sharpies. and you will just simply trace over your words, whatever words you decided to do, or whatever shape you decided to do, whatever you wanted to do for your rug, you'll just trace over it, and then we'll cut it out with the utility knife. Okay, sorry if the video looks a little different now. The lighting has probably changed because I needed to run to IKEA and pick up a mat to finish this tutorial for you guys. So a few side notes. I tried this tutorial using a roll of vinyl from the Dollar Tree, and it actually worked really well, but it didn't stick to the mat. So I just kind of had to hold it in different areas, which was fine, but stencil made out of the vinyl will only be a one-time use thing, which most of you will probably only use this once. However, if you wanted to make one for your mom or for your sisters or for your neighbor or whoever, these stencils that you make out of this paper can be reused over and over and over again. So it's kind of awesome. Or maybe you want to open your own Etsy shop and sell them for $35 each. Whatever you want to do, it's kind of awesome that they are reusable stencils. So today, since I already made the Hey There Pumpkin stencil, I'm actually going to make a spider stencil because I think a rug would be really fun with just spiders all over it. So I'm just gonna make one spider and then I'm gonna move it around the rug. So I'm gonna take, my printer is clearly running out of ink, but I printed my spider to the size I like. I'm just gonna put it underneath. Let me put this stencil over here for a sec. I'm gonna put it underneath, and I'm just gonna cut out the paper the size that I need. You wanna leave a little bit of room around. You don't wanna cut it like perfectly to size. You wanna have a little bit of leeway there. And I'm gonna put this big piece on the ground. All right, so now I have a little piece of the stencil paper. I have my printout, and I'm just gonna take my Sharpie and trace. And also, a side note, when you trace, it does not need to be perfect, especially if it's straight lines like in lettering, because when you cut, you can always just cut in a straight line. So it's pretty, it works pretty well. If you go a little wobbly, it does not matter. Okay, I'm making my way around my spider here. Almost there. So the lettering obviously takes a little longer to trace, but pull up to the TV with a good show and you'll be good. So I traced my spider, there it is. Now I am going to put down a mat to cut on. If you don't have a cutting mat, you could do like a piece of cardboard. It might be a little harder because your knife might get stuck in the cardboard as you cut, but you don't want to cut directly on your table because you'll have a nice little spider indented into your table. So put a cutting mat down and get your knife out. And I hold mine like a pencil and I just go for it. You'll kind of need to experiment to see how much pressure you need to put on the knife as you cut. And sometimes with curvy lines, it's easier to rotate the paper, I found, than to rotate your knife. There, voila. So here's my spider. One other issue that I will not have with my spider, but you will have if you're doing lettering, is that you'll need to keep the insides of the letters. So for letters like A, capital R, D, O, all of those letters that have an inner part, you'll need to keep them. So these are mine right here. These are my, let's see, I have a P, an R, I have two P's and an R for this Hey There Pumpkin stencil. Okay, so our next step, whoops. Our next step is to paint. So If you are doing lettering and you want something in a really specific part, my suggestion is to use some duct tape and tape it into place. So if I were doing this lettering, then I would actually use a ruler and center it. So I just use the ruler and just make sure that it's centered and where I want it. Or like some people do the rugs like all the way in the corner, the lettering in the corner, it's really cute. It's totally just a matter of personal preference. So like I said, if I were doing lettering, I'd take the duct tape, I'd just do one piece here, one piece at the bottom, and then for the inner letters, I actually took a tiny piece of duct tape. I don't know if you can see that, but you know how you turn tape into double stick tape and you kind of make it a loop? I made the tiniest little piece of double stick tape, duct tape. Double stick duct tape. And I used that, and that worked really well to keep that inner piece in place while I did the stencil. So it doesn't look maybe like it doesn't feel super secure, but as you're painting, I promise it should stay as long as you use the technique that I teach you with the painting. So, okay, so I'm gonna move this out of the way, and I'm gonna do my first spider. I'll do it down here at this side so that hopefully you guys can see that on the camera. I'm not gonna tape mine because I'm gonna be moving my stencil all around, but you just take, I always use sour cream and cottage cheese lids for my paint. It's just what I have laying around. So you just take a decent amount of the acrylic paint, and I like to use the, this is probably like a 3/4 inch brush, but like I said earlier, you can use a foam sponge brush, but I use the bigger one to start, and you'll just do this method, just up and down, dabbing. So, and just hold the stencil in place. And there's some pieces that look like they're coming up a little bit. As long as you only go up and down, it should not affect where the paint goes. Those pieces should still act like a stencil. So just dab up and down. Okay, my spider's almost filled in. The advice I'll give you with lettering is that I used the bigger brush for the first time, and then I took the stencil off and I actually used the 1/4 inch brush to just go in the letters to make it a little bit darker of a black and to kind of get it in between the fibers of the rug. And I used the skinny one because the lettering is thicker than this brush, so I didn't really have to worry about going outside the lines. But it doesn't really need a second layer. I think the first layer does the trick. Oh, that looks so cute. Okay, so there's my first spider. Cute. And I will continue on with my spiders and I'll show you guys the finished product. I'm just gonna make this a fun, spooky rug for my front door. And I will type this whole tutorial up with picture directions. So if anything was unclear, check out my blog. It's Kendall Burns, The Midnight Oil. Get it? My name's like Candle Burns, the Midnight Oil. Anyway, it's Kendall, Kendall, Burns, themidnightoil.com. And there'll be a tutorial there. I'll link it below. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions at all. And you can always follow me on Instagram and ask me questions there. Yeah, pretty simple. Or if you don't want to do this tutorial, you can go to my website and buy yourself a rug. So, all right, thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.